Hey, welcome on in, guys. Tobin here with you, and thanks for checking out the channel. Another Dolphins video off game 2 of the preseason, and I wanted to get into this because Stephen Ross had some thoughts on the upcoming Dolphins season, and he doesn't speak much anymore. Stephen Ross used to hold shop, used to have like a little State of the Union address. I've been at some weird Stephen Ross press conferences. We've all heard some weird ones that he wishes he had back. And I would say for the most part, Stephen Ross, I don't know when the decision came along to not talk as much, but it does feel like whenever that happened, he it usually comes with some hyperbolic stuff and maybe calls things a little bit wacky, but it is interesting to hear what the expectations are of the man who signs a lot of checks. Now, look, as the grades go, like, you can't ask for a guy who spends the money that this guy does any better. He had to write some big checks this offseason. He had to sign some monster contracts this offseason. He had to restructure some contracts this offseason. And he's basically done all of that into the hands of his football people. Everybody tells you what the Dolphins do, top notch. What they've done to that facility at Hard Rock Stadium, incredible. So he's come from that standpoint a long, long way. The optics of the team, honestly, all you got to do is you got one move left, Steve, and that is just go back to the throwback Fins unis, and you have put your Thanos stone together as far as game ops is concerned. Maybe sell stuffed penguins with little Waddle jerseys on them. I mean, it's up to you if you just want to make more money. Just you just food for thought. But today, Stephen Ross was in the booth. He came in, I think, in the second Dolphins drive. He came in after the Tua touchdown drive and was with Steve Goldstein, Kim Camper. And look, to Stephen Ross's to Stephen Ross, he has big, lofty expectations. And this is, typically how he goes. He always has big, lofty expectations, whether it, is comparing Tannehill or Henny to Marino or Joe Philbin to Don Shula, and those things have happened. Or saying that the Dolphins took the town back from the Heat after LeBron left, only to watch the Heat go to finals and him still sit here waiting for a playoff win. Like, he could step in it every now and then with some of his comments, but I think this is a fair one. And I think it's an okay thing for him to say. And that is because he has spent a lot of money on this team. And quite frankly, I haven't gone with the Dolphins players who are just like, we're here just to get let's snap that playoff streak win. Like, let's get that first win in 24 years. Let's get that under our belt. And I know that then they've gone to, and then let's get the Super Bowl. Like, I'm okay with Stephen Ross going immediately like, hey, we're contenders. And that, you put the money that he has into this team, that he has the right to feel that his team is contenders. But he had said to his team, he says, right now we have a great roster and everyone has great expectations. If we stay healthy, we're certainly a contender for the Super Bowl. And I think that's an okay thing for him to say. I honestly do. I think for Stephen Ross to put it out there like that, it is interesting because I do wonder on the inside, like, what does, is Stephen Ross almost putting, it's a harmless enough quote, right? It's just confident enough, but it is a wonder because he has made moves before where you didn't necessarily see it coming, like the Brian Flores firing, like giving Joe Philbin an extension, like after a random Vikings game. Like, sometimes he will swerve when you don't realize it. And I do wonder if that is a little bit of a, hey, Mike, you're on notice, dude. Like, we've given you everything you need. And he even said, like, with him, he said on Mike McDaniel today, this was his quote. Now, I was, this is from Joe Shad, Palm Beach Post. I heard that, you were here and you listened to the broadcast, but he said, we took a chance on Mike McDaniel. I was impressed by his intelligence. He's a unique person. He's doing a great job, and everybody loves him, which I think is true. But there are still some things with Mike McDaniel, and they've talked about the way he calls games and, his play calling ability. Is this a year where, like, yeah, the expectations from the owner are very, very lofty and that they are at a spot where they're at an all-time high. I think that's an okay thing for him to say. Stephen Ross, with this roster, has put forth and come with his checkbook in a big, big way. You've watched now him hand the keys over to this young head coach who nobody else interviewed, and the guy has gotten him back-to-back winning seasons, but also has had 2 years in a row where the season has got off to a rocket start and really fell off. Yes, one of them I will give the absolute pass to. You lose your starting quarterback. Should you get the pass for half of your defense falling off? Probably, but also, you were a non-meltdown away from not being in a dire situation of playing in the frozen tundra. So I think for him to hear this from the outset from Stephen Ross, it ain't going to be like Jerry Jones, braggadocious, and all that type of stuff. It's not going to be in that type of manner. But it was, it is noticeable, even at Stephen Ross's age and him doing his, he doesn't talk as much, and we only really see him when he does his little adorable waddle in the booth now. But yeah, it feels like the man is the man is at a spot right now where he wants to see his investment pay off in a big way. So Mike McDaniel was asked about the comments after the game, and here was Mike McDaniel on what Stephen Ross said on the broadcast.
Mike, during the game, the team owner Stephen Ross was interviewed by CBS, and among the things he said, if we stay healthy, we're certainly a contender for the Super Bowl. Do you like those types of comments?
Absolutely. I think that means I think from a team perspective, a lot of times people are hesitate to talk about goals, in case you don't achieve them. I don't really operate that way. There's a lot of steps before that, so I don't think, necessarily it's on our guys' minds right now, because our goals are creating our standard and then winning the next game, and then you try to do the division, and then you try to win the conference, and you try to win the Super Bowl. So, but I like the building, and including the owner having the mindset of, let's be bold, don't be afraid of anything. We're going to compete, and that I think that brings out the best in people. And I'm excited that he, I think that means he believes in the program, right?
I hope he does. It definitely seems like Stephen Ross is in a positive way. Like you said, he had positive things to say about Mike. I just think that we've seen, like, he kind of goes in these 3-year waves, and I definitely think that it's going to be antsy. Like, look, if you have a year where the Dolphins lose the division to the Bills again, or trail the the Jets, yeah, the dude's going to want some answers, and there may be some consequences for it. And so it is interesting that he's just, it's not like he's putting the team on notice, because it's not like he's saying, I expect a Super Bowl or else. But what he thinks. When he spends that kind of money on a Tyreek Hill and a Jalen Waddle and a Tua, who, has had an up and down future with the organization, and not seemingly the most belief from Stephen Ross at all times, right? Like the Tom Brady chase, the snooping around Deshaun Watson, the asking if they could, clear things around Deshaun. He's been through his feelings about the quarterback too. Now it seems like everything's in a different place. He obviously gave him $167 million. So when you give over and you fork that kind of dough over to a player, and the coach that made you believe in him and put him in that spot, yeah, I think your things are going to be at a lofty spot. Tua, though, I got to tell you, I liked Tua on this more so than Mike McDaniel, because Mike McDaniel says, we got to do things step by step, but he's also the guy that, scheduled the meetings in the offseason 24 after the hour because of the streak, right? I guess streak, skid, whatever you want to refer to the hellhole that no playoff wins have been in 24 years. But he's the one scheduling the meetings and all that, and then he's the one about changing the narrative. So it's not like Mike McDaniel's unaware of season-long goals or season-long narratives or expectations either, right? Like, he's not always just a week-by-week guy. But Tua was asked about this, and here's what QB wanted to say.
During the game, the CBS broadcast, they interviewed the team owner, Stephen Ross, and he said, if we stay healthy, we're certainly a contender for the Super Bowl. I don't know if you knew that he said that, but no. What are your thoughts on those remarks?
What are your thoughts? You think so?
Contender? Yeah, I think there's about 10 teams that have a chance.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I mean, you just said contender. I think there's 10 teams. Are the Dolphins one of the 10 teams?
I think so.
You think so? Yeah. I would say that's the reason we play this game. If none of us have the belief that we can do it, it won't happen for us on our team. So of course we have that belief.
I love it. I think it's a fair thing for Tua. Is like, well, do you? I like that Tua's like throwing that back. He's like, hey, do you? Yeah, of course I think it. It would, but I got to be honest with you. Like hearing back Joe Shad's tone, I was like, when you say like that was contender. Like it was almost like I didn't feel like Joe really did believe it. I felt like Joe was like, he was almost waffly because like when you say contender and you say 10 teams, that's a third of the league. So like, I suppose 10 teams you feel like could win the Super Bowl if things break right. But I do think when you're Stephen Ross, like you probably think of yourself as like, first of all, I think everybody looks at the AFC as a far more loaded conference. So it's really truly like, all right, how many teams of this conference do you think can actually do it? But yeah, I definitely think that Tua, like everybody said, he's walked around with a different swagger. He's walked around with a different bravado this year. And, I think it's being dismissively agreeing with that, I think is like the perfect tone. Obviously he feels like they have the capability of doing it. But it is interesting, the owner, we don't hear him speak much anymore. And he is putting that out there right from the outset. He goes, yeah, you're damn right. If this team is healthy, that they're contenders for the Super Bowl. So it's the line in the sand has been drawn from the boss man.